Welcome to the hardest working committee on government affairs. Will the secretary please take the roll?
Assemblyman Carter.
Present.
Assemblyman DeLong.
Present.
Assemblyman De Silva.
Here.
Assemblywoman Duran. Assemblywoman Gonzalez. Assemblyman Gurr. Assemblyman Hibbets. Assemblyman Koenig. Assemblyman MacArthur. Assemblyman Wynn. Assemblywoman Taylor. Assemblywoman Thomas. Chair Torres.
Thank you, Secretary. And if you could please mark Assemblyman Hibbets and Assemblyman Thomas absent, excused until they and present when they arrive. Today. And I apologize. I think I said Assemblyman Thomas was not here. It's Assemblyman Taylor. The two T last names. Welcome to the audience here in Carson City, those joining us in Las Vegas, and those joining us online. Just a couple of reminders. Please remember to silence your electronic devices. If you wish to testify, please sign in at the table by the door and provide a business card to the committee secretary. For those joining online, please be sure to mute your microphone when you're not speaking to minimize background noise. When testifying, please turn on the microphone, clearly state your name, spell your name, and state your affiliation, if any, for the record. Then turn the microphone off each time you're done speaking. Any handouts should have already been provided to our committee staff. We expect courtesy and respect in our interactions during the meeting, even if we may not agree with another person's position. Committee members will be using their laptops to view handouts and other documents. Please do not view this as a sign of disrespect or inattention. We are going to go ahead and introduce two different BDRs at this time. So just as a reminder, we're just introducing these BDRs. We're not voting them out of committee. We're just introducing them. We have two at this time. We have BDR 281031, which revises provisions governing public works, and BDR 18849, which revises provisions governing the Nevada Administrative Procedures Act. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to introduce the according BDRs. I have a motion from Assemblyman Wynn and a second from Assemblyman DeLong. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. 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 Any opposed? This motion does carry. And our word of the day is highlights. I know we're going to have a lot of highlights throughout our morning. So we're going to go ahead and begin with one of our morning's highlights, a presentation from Assemblyman Anderson, who used to sit on this committee. We'll go ahead and open the hearing on AB 214, which revises provisions governing certain regional transportation commissions. When you're ready.
All right, so first I'm going to make the note highlights. Okay. Good morning. Thank you, Chair Torres, Vice Chair Duran, and members of the Government Affairs Committee. It's nice to be back home in GA, which is where I served last session and greatly enjoyed it. My name is Natha Anderson, and it is my honor and pleasure to serve as Assembly Member of Assembly District 30, which is in the heart of the Truckee Meadows. I'm here today with the President of Northern Nevada Central Labor Council, Ross Kinson, former President of NNCL, Mike Pilcher, and President of Teamsters Local 533, which is in Washoe County, Gary Watson, to present AB 214. Commissioner Richard Tick Sagerbloom will also be joining us via Zoom. The proposed language that you see before you has been based upon numerous conversations and an attempt to address the increase in violence against bus drivers in our communities. Our bus drivers are treated incredibly poorly, and this is not necessarily the school bus drivers. These are individuals that are providing services to the adults as well as to the children who are attempting to go around our communities. Our transit operators and others who work for regional transportation centers, or RTC, have seen an increase in violence around our nation, but also in our own community. From documented incidents in New Mexico to New Jersey and other places that do not have the new in their word, it is stated, as Jeff Rosenberg of the Amalgamated Transit Union, it's very common for our workers to get spit on, slapped, and a lot of time agencies just try to sweep it under the rug. This was actually from an article written by Jared Bray for Governing, and that just came out the first week of March. It is, however, an incident that happened this week in our own state that truly shows how difficult it is to be a bus driver and how solitary some of them are treated. As many of you know, on, I believe it was Monday, one of our bus drivers in Clark County was attacked. There was only one passenger on that bus. And then when the police officers came on, along with the police dog, they were also attacked. Yet many times our bus drivers are not treated with the dignity and respect that they deserve. They are, in fact, essential workers. This was especially true during the pandemic and then directly following that. So the ideas presented today actually have nothing to do with what happened on Monday, but it highlights that this has been happening for some time. The ideas, the language being brought forward from Northern Nevada Labor Council and the Teamsters Local 533 have been discussed for some time, and we're still attempting to find some common language or common ground with the Regional Transportation Commission of Washoe County, as well as the Southern Regional Transportation Commission, who've also been experiencing this. I wanted to do a special shout out to Angela Castro, who's actually with the Southern Regional Transportation Commission, for attempting to work with us on this even as late as yesterday. The language, however, being brought forward will be a mashup of the two amendments that have been sent in. I wanted to respect the timeline of trying to get it in within the 24-hour time frame, but also respect the fact that we've got deadlines. And so we need to have this hearing today. The language that actually is being presented is still being discussed, and we will continue to have those discussions. I am hoping that we'll be able to find a cleanup language very soon, and we'll continue to have meetings with everybody involved. With the chair's permission, I would like to walk through the mashup of the two amendments and then ask Commissioner Sagerbloom to talk about his experiences with the advisory committee, and then ask the individuals with me today. Thank you for your acknowledgement.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Okay. So section 1 of the bill draft request that you have in front of you deals with prevailing wage language, apprenticeship programs, health insurance, misclassifications.
And real quickly, just one thing, don't
Thank
forget
you.
to state your name for the record, but then additionally, we just had a question whether or not we were using one of the amendments. 'Cause
We
have
will
two-
be using both amendments.
Both amendments.
Yes.
I have one that was introduced on behalf of RTC by Washoe County and one from, from your office.
That's
So,
correct.
Both of those? Okay.
Yes, it's a
Thank you.
mashup of the two, and again, this had to do with language that we were still discussing even as late as yesterday, and then phone calls that even took place last night. So we're still trying to get the right language, or as we all know, sometimes the best laws are those that nobody's happy with, so the language that everybody can handle. So the first thing, though, will actually be the bill draft request initial language that has to do with section 1. And again, this discusses prevailing wages, apprenticeship programs, health insurance, misclassifications, and other items. There continues to be a robust discussion around these issues, and it's believed there's a very strong possibility that we'll be able to figure out a different way to bring that language forward in different connection or conversations or written agreements between the two parties. Section 2, I would like you to look at the submission of the Regional Transportation Commission of Washoe County and the Southern Nevada Regional Transportation. That proposed language under Section 2, which on the amendment is actually on page 2, is something that we have mostly agreed with. There's still a few little tiny problems that deal with that. We're still trying to make sure that the language is set. This deals with the length of time for maintaining any record, whether it is video or otherwise, made from the electronic system, and other policy language as it relates to assault, and again, how long we're able to request that video information to help our employees feel safe. Section 3, which is on the bottom of the second page, again, of that same amendment. We'll be using the language of the RTC proposed amended language, which creates an advisory committee. We continue to be in the process of discussing very specific language so everyone can be comfortable with. However, I believe the two sides are very close to an agreement. This advisory committee would consist of at least 2 members who are recommended by the labor organization that is the exclusive bargaining agent, and at least 1 member from the general public. The specific number of members of the advisory committee continues to be discussed. However, if using the Clark County, Nevada model, It is based on no fewer than 8, nor more than 16. I believe this number is due to the larger population, so I'm not sure if those numbers will at this time be the same. Section 4 through 7 of the information that is being proposed by myself and the other gentleman correspond to the discussion around Section 1 of the PDR. So those discussions of definitions and reporting will be addressed in the upcoming amendment. And again, this has to do with lengthy discussions. I realize that it would have been wonderful to have another request to push this back. However, I also realize we have deadlines. And the chair was kind enough to push it back once. And so wanted to get this out to you. Chair, may I ask Commissioner Stegerblum to maybe speak very quickly about the advisory committee that takes place in Clark County?
I have to say, I'm very excited. This is the first time we've had Commissioner Stegerblum in the Assembly Government Affairs Committee this cycle. So welcome, Commissioner Stegerblum. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Madam Chair. And also, looking at the membership of your committee, it looks kind of like the membership of my district. So it's pretty impressive to be able to appear for your committee and your members and present an item which I think is critically important. And also, I want to say, with Assemblywoman Anderson, her father taught me everything I know, for better or worse. But he was the best mentor anyone could ever ask for, and what a legend, and just an honor to be here representing her or assisting her in her bills and her future career. I just want to speak briefly about the track committee, which is part of this bill. I'm on the RTC as a member of the county commission. I'm a member of the RTC down here in Las Vegas, and the track commission is very valuable to us because similar to Washoe County, the RTC is multi-jurisdictional. It's great to have a body that inputs public opinion to reflect on how the Transportation Commission is doing, what we can do better, and also as the subject of this bill, as far as specifically the drivers and how they're being treated, how we can assist them, because they are really at the front lines, and they have been, during COVID and now continuing, they have just really been abused. So I can't brag enough about how the drivers have stepped up to the plate and continue to drive and serve the community through thick and thin, and so they're just critical to this. But anyway, going back to the track committee itself, it's multi-jurisdictional. It's comprised of members of the community, from labor, from Chamber of Commerce, from different aspects. But it's a great way for the commission and the bus company itself to get input from the community. So I just would say in Las Vegas, it's worked out fantastic, and I would urge at least that portion of the bill to be strongly supported.
Thank you. Is there any additional remarks?
Yes, and I just wanted to thank again Commissioner Stegerblum for joining us today.
And your name for the record, please.
Oh, so sorry, Assemblymember Anderson. Thank you again, Commissioner Stegerblum, for joining us. Really appreciate it. I would ask that Mr. Kinson kind of maybe explain a little bit about why or the difficulties happening with very specific incidents that have happened in Washoe, if possible. And then I will also ask Mike to continue on with that too. And then we'll be open for questions, if that's okay with you.
Madam Chair, if I could be excused, I have to run off to some matters, but I hope to be up there after it warms up.
Thank you, Commissioner Stegerblum. It's definitely a highlight of our morning to have you here with us today. Thank you. Please carry on.
Thank you so much.
And please continue with the presentation. Although I will say I definitely want to have time for members' questions. So if you could go quickly, please. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Ross Kinson, newly elected president of the Northern Nevada Central Labor Council. Thank you so much for having us today to kind of go over this. So I'm here today to speak on behalf of the transit operators, the coach operators, dispatchers, mechanics, essentially the workers, right? And I'm speaking in support of this bill. We've been working closely with the RTC, both in Washoe and in the South, had several meetings to go over this language to make sure that we were working together, presenting something that was solutionary for both sides, for the workers, for the RTC, and actually put something before you that brought real solutions, right? The issues that we are focusing on, as has been spoken to already, is really around safety and around collaboration. And that comes in the form of a benefit that Southern Nevada has had for a while, and that's the track, right? We don't have that up in the north, and we would like to have something like that to be able to put working folks, community members on a committee to be able to find solutions and help the RTCs out. While it is true that we're still working to hammer down some of the language, we believe that we're close, and all of the affected parties have been working closely together on this. I know that time's limited, so I'll sort of end it there. But if you have any questions, we're here to take them. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and members of the committee. For the record, Mike Pilcher. I'm the former president of the Northern Nevada Central Labor Council as of last month. And I wanted to let you know that we started this journey to utilize potentially NRS 277A as the vehicle for change. When we decided to do that, I reached out to our national AFL-CIO in Washington, D.C., and solicited the advice of the Transportation Trades Division, who looks at multiple states and what's happening. And it's from the start, I asked them to help us with the chapter in what we could do to assist the RTCs, our metropolitan planning organizations, where they sought or they thought we could improve the chapter, and procurement was one. We suggest some higher standards for Nevada's limited and fragile tax dollars for public transit, preserving the video surveillance for a longer period of time. Am I too close? Excuse me. So as to have review to improve the safety of passengers and drivers with respect to maybe engineering controls, environmental controls, or better training. And then finally, as my colleagues have said, bring a track up to Washoe County, which the population is approaching 500,000. It's time, and we'd like to have some members on that committee who actually do the transportation. So from the start, it's been a journey to assist our metropolitan planning organizations. And then finally, members of the committee, Madam Chair and Madam Vice Chair, in speaking with the Executive Director in Northern Nevada for RTC Washoe, and the Deputy Director in Southern Nevada for RTC Southern Nevada, I can tell you, I can hear it in their voice. They have tremendous concerns about the future of public transit with respect to budgeting. Their indications to me are clear. They can barely expect to keep the system running with their goals, let alone accomplish some of our suggestions to improve the transit system throughout Nevada. I hope this is the proper arena to tell you that, and thank you for your time, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and members of the committee. For the record, Mike Pilcher.
Assemblymember Anderson, and again, thank you so much for the time for this hearing. And please accept my apology for the disjointed language. I think many of you know me. This is not usually how I like to present information. However, I also understand the deadlines that we are under as a legislature. So again, greatly appreciate this committee's understandings, and I think we're all ready for questions. I more than likely will be phoning any of these three friends and others to help us out with them. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing those highlights with us. Members, any questions? Assemblywoman Thomas and then Assemblywoman Gonzalez. Go ahead.
Good morning, and thank you, Chair. And thank you, Assemblywoman Anderson, for the presentation. And I understand about the deadlines, but I am a little confused, to say the least, with your bill. And I understand your amendment and hearing everything. I guess I have a comment and a question in here. When you come to us for legislation on something that, to me, is a contract negotiation with the employers of the RTC, when your employees are concerned about safety, that's a contract. And I don't see this happening here right now. It's, to me, government overreach. You want government to satisfy a contract negotiation. And I think that that's wrong. So that's my comment. My second comment, I had the pleasure of being a writer of the RTC a couple of years ago. And number one, I can understand, I come from an area where the bus service runs every 10 to 15 minutes. And here, I had to wait 55 minutes for a bus that breaks down and wait another 55 minutes for another bus. So I didn't become angry and hostile, but there were other people that were angry and hostile. So I can understand the public being angry and hostile because we are not getting the service that we should get from the RTC. So again, I understand, I truly do, that we want to protect our employees from hostility of the public, being spat upon and, hit, all of that. But that's a contract negotiation. Thank you.
If I may. Assemblymember Anderson, that is one reason why Section 1 continues to be discussed and will more than likely be amended out, is based upon those other discussions. The reality, however, is exactly what you brought up in the second portion. Many times, the employees have brought forward this information and has been ignored. This is the only avenue that at one point our Central Labor Council felt was the only way to be heard. Since this bill has been discussed, there's been a much more open door, from what I hear. And I agree with you. It is sad that we have to utilize the legislative process in this way. Luckily, there has been change in management. However, the RTC in the Northern Nevada area has undergone 4 strikes? How many strikes? 3 strikes in a matter of just a few months, based upon an inability to have an open door. Those open doors might have been from one side or the other, but for whatever reason, the people's voices of the people that work for the RTC was either not being listened to or was being ignored. And I agree with you. It is sad that we had to use this, but that is the reality. At times, there are some people that will not listen unless we do this. The other issue of the timing of the bus services is not just the people that are driving the buses. It is also the fact that we are unable to keep individuals, as you know. However, this occurred 2 or 3 years ago, I believe is what you're talking of. And I also have been in that situation where I have to take the bus. I make a plan, and then it is not always the same. I'm going to ask Mr. Watson, did you want to add to it, or are you comfortable?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, Mr. Watson, if you would please continue.
Gary Watson, International Brotherhood of Teamsters, Local 533. On behalf of my members, I just want to speak to the fact of the turnover rate within this system is roughly, right now, they have 40% of the employees are less than 1 year of service. They have a high turnover rate in this system, and there needs to be a lot of fixes to that.
And if we could just get some clarification based off some questions from members too, whether or not this is specifically looking at like the local buses, city buses, right? Does this apply to school buses?
Nathan Anderson, for the record, that is correct. It is only for the buses that are for the Regional Transportation Commission, and that is exactly why we're trying to bring forward language to have track or a committee to be able to look at those issues as well. This does not deal with the Washington County School District or any school district buses.
Thank you. I think for many committee members, when we hear buses, we think immediately of yellow buses with kids. So thank you. I appreciate that clarification. Members, additional questions? Assemblyman Gonzalez.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and thank you so much for the presentation. I definitely have heard similar concerns from workers in my district, and so I was just curious. I know you're working on an amendment, but I was wondering, what is the current process of surveillance? What is that time frame looking like, and why are we asking for changes in that area? Thank you.
Ross Kinson, for the record. Thank you for the question. So in answer to that question, the current process is that there's cameras on the buses and there's cameras at the facilities. The cameras on the buses, my understanding is that information, the recording, is held for about 3 days. So if something happens and it's not immediately notified, if one of our drivers is attacked by a member, by a passenger, and doesn't understand the process, again, most of our drivers are new at this point, don't understand that they have the right to advocate for themselves or defend themselves, that information could be lost. That's where we're looking for an extension to hold those records. And I hope that answers the question. If you need further clarification, please let me know. Thank you.
Assemblyman De Silva.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, my distinguished colleague and presenters here for bringing up a very important issue. My dad was a RTC bus driver. Back then, it was a CAT bus, and and he told me some stories about some of the experiences that he had, being a bus driver on the Cary route and the Lake Mead and Las Vegas Boulevard and then the paratransit. My question is this: what's the starting wage currently for RTC bus drivers in Clark County as well as here in Washoe County? Thank you.
Gary Watson, for the record, International Brotherhood of Teamsters, Local 533. I cannot speak to Clark County with the starting wages, but I can speak to Washoe County, the starting wage. It's just a little bit over $20 an hour. Thank you.
And Assemblymember Anderson, I can get you the Clark County wage. I will text somebody and ask for that.
Thank you, members. Any additional questions? Yes, I'll go to Vice Chair Duran and then Assemblyman Thomas again.
Thank you. And just was wondering, is it a policy, or are you going to try to include this to negotiate that time change? Because I think sometimes you can work that out with the company, is the problem that they're not willing to cooperate with you on those things? Because I know it is important to save evidence, but just as just a policy, because there is issues that people get hurt and they don't request that information.
Assemblymember Anderson, I believe at this time it is something, both with being hurt and everything, that it will be something that's both negotiated and also being discussed. One thing that you'll notice under Section 3 of the language that we presented, it basically says that the track committee would be able to be asked to discuss anything as assigned by the RTC Commission. So that's one area. So the idea of the policy would make sense from that, to come from that organization. But then the other thing is also the contract is only really for the people that are the bus drivers. So I'm not sure exactly what the process would be. So I'm going to phone a friend.
Thank you, Assemblyman Anderson. And for the record, Mike Pilcher, Northern Nevada Central Labor Council, past president, through the chair to the vice chair. To answer the question, we are in collaboration talks with RTC Southern Nevada and RTC Washoe. Southern Nevada has policy that retains it for 7 days. We're asking for a little bit longer. Washoe County has the ability to hold for 14 days. So we've discussed a letter of commitment to that effect and make a policy change and remove it from chapter.
Thank you, Assemblyman Carter.
Thank you. I wanted to talk a little bit, maybe comment, but ask also about Section 1. I see in there a long overdue attempt to require that the prevailing wage funds go to where they're supposed to, supporting public health, requiring a family-based health plan. It doesn't address retirement, but it also addresses training. That's part of the reason our tax dollars pay those prevailing wage portions, is so that we don't have people, construction workers primarily, that choose to put it all on the check, and then next thing we know, there's indigent care, or they could be that thing like everybody knows, Amazon's our biggest Medicaid recipient. Are we still trying to maintain that somewhere, trying to push that effort forward to get those training dollars and healthcare dollars to be spent where they're supposed to? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. For the record, Mike Pilcher, North Nevada Central Labor Council, through the chair to Assemblyman Carter. To answer your question, that is a baseline threshold that we looked at putting into chapter to help our RTCs. We can always negotiate those issues, and we do so. But we thought that in the best interest of the RTCs and the metropolitan planning organizations, that it's kind of a heads up for these international corporations that want to bid for our Nevada dollars, that look, there's some baselines, and the baseline expectation is you will provide health care, industrial insurance, the basic prevailing wages that allow, to your point, them to be self-sufficient. There is some mention in there because the internationals are not quite sure. It's not a regular project like the full-time transit system is, but occasionally we do build new bus stops and we do build a bus terminal, and there's one scheduled for up north, and we would like to see those public dollars generate 338, Chapter 338, and prevailing wage, so our people can be self-sufficient, afford to live in the community where they work. So I hope that answers your question, Assemblyman.
Thank you. Members, any additional questions? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and invite anyone wishing to testify in support of AB 214 here in Carson City or in Las Vegas. Mr. Catha, please begin when you're ready.
Thank you. Paul Catha, that's spelled C-A-T-H-A, representing the Culinary Workers Union Local 226. I'll just say we support the bill and have a good day.
That is exactly how we love testimony and support here in the Committee of Government Affairs. Go ahead when you're ready.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee and staff. My name is Rick McCann, Nevada Association of Public Safety Officers and a member of the Nevada Law Enforcement Coalition. Safety is everyone's concerns. And frankly, it's the only reason why I'm here, because this is a safety issue. There's more colors on this stuff. There's purple and blue and red and green and orange. It's pretty. Get it to one color, black. You do that and you maintain safety concerns, which is all I'm here for. We're all in favor of this. That's all. Thank you.
Good morning to the hardest working committee at this legislature. My name is Troyce Crumey, Troyce-Krumme. I'm the current vice chairman of the Las Vegas Police Managers and Supervisors Association. We are also here in support of this bill based on the safety. And while I appreciate the sponsor pointing out the incident from Monday night, explaining it as attack on the bus driver, I'm going to provide a little bit of extra. That bus driver was allegedly struck with a large piece of concrete, which kicked that unfortunate series of events off, and 3 of the officers that responded ended up getting into a struggle with the gentleman alleged to have done that and walked away. One got punched in the face, another officer got struck with a large rock, and one of the other officers ended up having part of his ear bitten off. So these bus drivers face this thing on a daily basis, and I think bodies responsible for serving the safety to public servants deserve to have that safety met. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Susie Martinez, and I am the Executive Secretary Treasurer of the Nevada State AFL-CIO. When I was working at my job, I also had to advocate for us to get safety buttons because the customers were getting very aggressive. So the struggle is real. At the end of the day, we just want our family members, if you're going to work, you get home safely, as well as the people who are riding the bus. So with that being said, we are in support of Assembly Bill 214, and thank you, Assemblywoman Anderson, for bringing this to everybody's attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to testify in support of AB 214? I don't see any here in Carson City or in Las Vegas. BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in support of AB 214?
Callers, if you would like to testify in support of AB 214, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Good morning. This is Leo Saldate with the Labor's Union Local 169 out of Reno, Nevada, and we are in support of the bill.
Thank you. Next caller.
Caller, you're unmuted on our end. Please go ahead.
Hello. BPS, next caller.
Caller with the last three digits, 142. Please press *6 to unmute your microphone.
Please proceed, caller. BPS, next caller.
Caller with the last three digits, 230. Please press *6 to unmute your microphone.
Good morning. My name is Andrew Rivas, for the record. I'd just like to thank the committee for their time and let them know I'm in full support of AB 214. I believe the committee should be as well. When companies do not take a worker safety seriously, it is a very big issue. And it's something, if a company is not going to take responsibility, needs to be legislated. And at that point, bus drivers being attacked is not a contractual issue. This is not between a union and an employer. This is a public safety issue, period. And if state legislature needs to step in, state legislature needs to step in. And if state legislature won't step in, then we need new state legislature. Thank you.
Thank you. And are you affiliated with any organization? Okay, BPS, next caller.
Caller with the last three digits, 788. Please press *6 at this time to unmute your microphone.
Thank you. And please state your name and spell your name for the record.
Caller, you're unmuted on our end. You may be muted on your end. Please go ahead.
Good morning. Can you hear me now?
Yes, please
Chairwoman
proceed.
Torres and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Rita Weishar. Last name is Weisshar. I'm in full support of the Assembly Bill 214, and I urge the committee to support it as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Hello?
Hi. Yes, please state your name and spell your name for the record. Please proceed.
My name is Amanda Nelson, Nelson. I am here in full support of Assembly Bill 214, and I urge the committee to support it as well. I'm a bus driver for Keolis, and in my years of service, my friends have been assaulted, punched in the face, sexually assaulted, and we definitely we need to hold our public transportation systems accountable and ensure that workers have a voice in their day-to-day jobs and we get some more protections. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Good morning, Chairman Torres and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Tamara Weber, Tamara Weber. I'm with the National Nurses United, and I'm here in full support of Assembly Bill 214, and we urge the committee to support this as well.
Good morning, Chairwoman Torres and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Chris Gibson, CHRISGIBSON, with National Nurses United. I am here in full support of Assembly Bill 214, and I urge the committee to support it as well. Thank you.
Callers, if you would like to testify in support of AB 214, please press star 9 at this time to take your place in the queue.
For the record, my name is Mark Ellis. I'm the president of Communication Workers of America, Local 9413. It's spelled MARCELLIS. And I would just like to say on behalf of everybody else, ditto.
And can we get your name again, please, sir? Is that Mark Ellis?
Mark Ellis, MARCELLIS. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Thank you, Mark Ellis. We appreciate that.
Caller, you're unmuted on our end. Please go ahead.
Eloy Hara with Labor's Local. I'm not sure if you guys got my previous testimony, but we're in full support. I represent Labor's Local 169 out of Reno, Nevada, Labor's, and we're in full support of this bill.
Thank you. Could you
Thank
please
you.
state and spell your name?
Eloy Hara, spelled E-L-O-Y. Last name is J-A-R-A, Hara.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
BPS, next caller.
Good morning, Chairwoman Torres and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Liz Sorensen, spelled L-I-Z, last name S-O-R-E-N-S-O-N. I am the president of the Nevada State AFL-CIO, and I'm here in full support of Assembly Bill 214 this morning, and I urge the committee to support the bill as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. BPS, next caller.
Hello.
Hello. Please state your name and spell your name for the record.
Oh, perfect. Good morning. My name is Anthony Huerta. That's A-N-T-H-O-N-Y, W-I-R-T-A. I am here to support the Assembly Bill 214, and I urge the committee to support it as well.
Thank you. BPS, next caller.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for your time. My name's Lanita Troiano. I'm with National Nurses United.
Thank you.
and
Could you
I'm
please
here
spell
in
your
full
name?
Support of Assembly. Oh, sure. L-A-N-I-T-A. My last name's Troy, T-R-O-Y-A-N-O, with National Nurses United. And I'm here in full support of Assembly Bill 214, and we urge the committee to support that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, BPS. Next caller.
Caller with the last three digits 142. Please press *6 at this time to unmute your microphone.
Hello, is there anyone?
Chair, I believe that caller is having technical difficulties on their end. They're not unmuting their microphone.
Okay, next caller.
Caller with the last three digits 772. Please press *6 at this time to unmute your microphone.
Good morning, Chairperson. My name's Larry Wilson. I'm with the United Auto Workers, Local 2162, and I'm in full support of AB 214.
Thank you. Next caller.
Callers, if you would like to testify in support of AB 214, please press *9 at this time to take your place in the queue.
Good morning, Chair Torres and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Sue Bird, S-U-E-B-I-R-D. I am in full support of Assembly Bill 214, and I urge the committee to support it as well. Having been injured before, I know sometimes you don't know for quite some time whether you've been hurt or not. A quick Google search says that you have 1 to 3 years to file an assault, so I should have the ability to have that film available. It's everyone's responsibility to have a safe workplace. Thank you for your time, and please support the bill.
Chair, there are no more callers choosing to testify in support at this time.
Thank you. At this time, I'll invite anyone wishing to testify in opposition to AB 214. And please begin when you're ready.
Good morning, Chair, members of the committee. Paul Muratkin with the Vegas Chamber. First, I'd like to thank the bill sponsor for speaking with the Chamber about the bill. The Chamber's concern on AB 214 is not the intent or public safety of its workers or employees. It's regarding the board composition of the Advisory Council in Section 3. As you know, Southern Nevada RTC has had a very effective and successful track committee, which the Chamber is a member of. As you heard earlier, it has been a cross-section of labor, business community members, industry holders, public citizens, and we want to ensure that there's no unintended consequences that would change that dynamic and effectiveness of that board. So that's where our concerns stem, and we look forward to seeing the final amendment coming forward. Thank you very much, Madam Chair, members of the committee.
Good morning, Madam Chair. My name is Michael Hillerby on behalf of the Regional Transportation Commission of Washoe County. First, would like to thank the sponsor and the proponents for the productive conversations we've had of late. We do think there is progress being made and are confident we can come to a solution, whether that's a combination of some of this in statute and, as Assemblymember Thomas has pointed out, some contractually. We think we're making good progress in that. And Bill Thomas, our executive director, is here who will speak in a moment. I want to start by saying the safety of our riders and our passengers is our #1 priority. It always has been. That's what we're focused on. I know our colleagues in RTC Southern Nevada are in the Vegas location and will say the same thing. Just based on some of the questions and some very good ones from the committee, I want to clarify a couple of things. As Mr. Kinson said, we do have different systems in the transit stations versus the mobile systems on the buses. Right now, transit system, we save those videos for 30 days. On the mobile equipment, the buses, that's saved for 7 days. Again, we're pretty confident we can work on something that addresses the issue of making sure drivers or passengers have time to notify us. Saving video, as you all understand, is expensive, so we need to find what the right balance of that is. And again, we think we're pretty close. And as you've heard on a number of the other issues, makeup of an advisory committee, we're happy to have that union representation in this process. It's a public body, and again, we welcome that. So we will continue to work, and we appreciate the comments that you've had to Mr. Carter's question about contracting. RTC follows all state and federal procurement and purchasing laws. We have a number of additional pieces that are put on by the Federal Transit Administration because we do have federal money. So gladly do that and rigorously do that. So with that, I'll let Mr. Thomas speak. Thanks very much, and we'll be happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Bill Thomas, THOMAS. I'm the Executive Director of RTC Washoe. We're very pleased that Assemblywoman Anderson has opened this bill to our opportunity to participate. I just wanted to make sure that from our perspective, the committee is aware that when we talk, we're not talking as an agency, we're talking as a public entity that's been created to provide a critical service. So we do about 4.3 million rides a year, much less than Southern Nevada, but the people we serve, 60% of them don't have cars, 77% are low income, and when you look at the demographic of who we serve with our buses, it is disproportionately elderly, disabled, and people of color, and that's who uses the bus. So when we approach this, we don't necessarily see this as a labor management issue, we see it as a societal issue. We have to have bus drivers. We can't run our buses without them. And then people wisely, as Assemblywoman Thomas said, people get frustrated when their bus doesn't show up on time or when it's supposed to be. So we should all be focusing on that. But we're very concerned about the fiscal consequences of the bill as written, and that's why we're glad Assemblywoman Anderson's letting us participate, because at the end of the day, whatever money we spend on this to address where we're going, it comes directly out of the service we can provide, because we're a publicly funded entity. Local sales tax pays for the operations. Local sales tax, as you know, what taxes is based on a formula. It has nothing to do with demand. It has nothing to do with cost. It is what it is. So any dollar we get, we are spending it wisely, but we don't control how much we get. And so whenever things are added in terms of a cost to us, just know that that end of the day comes to ultimately the service and what service we can provide. But again, thank you to Assemblywoman Anderson for allowing us to participate to hopefully make this bill what it's intended to be, which is addressing a safety issue in particular for our bus drivers, because we care very much about them. Again, I said it once, I'll say it again, we need them.
Thank you, members. Any questions? We don't see any. Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to testify in opposition to AB 214? Seeing none, we will go ahead and move to Las Vegas. Is there anyone wishing to testify in opposition to AB 214? Seeing none, BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in opposition to AB 214?
Callers, if you would like to testify in opposition to AB 214, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Oh my God.
Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify in opposition at this time.
Thank you. BPS, or I apologize. In Las Vegas, can you tell me, are you in opposition or are you early for neutral?
Early for neutral. Thank you.
Perfect. We'll go ahead and start with you then. If there's anyone wishing to testify in neutral to AB 214, and we'll go ahead and begin in Las Vegas.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Chair and committee members. Angela Castro with the Regional Transportation Commission of Southern Nevada. For the record, we're testifying in neutral today. We remain committed to the safety of our operators, our riders, and our community. We agree that our operators are essential workers and our transit system is part of our economic ecosystem. We remain committed to working with the bill sponsor and the union. As discussed earlier, we are still working on some language and we're hopeful in finding a resolution that we can all agree to and bring forth to the committee. And to Assemblyman De Silva, thank you to your dad for his service. Our operators, to answer your questions, make $18, and as of July, they will make $21. $18.50, I'm sorry, for the record. Our operators today make $18.50, and as of July, they will make $21. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that information, Ms. Castro. Is there anyone else wishing to testify neutral in Carson City or in Las Vegas? I do not see any. BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify neutral to AB 214?
Callers, if you would like to testify neutral for AB 214, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify neutral at this time.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and invite the bill sponsor up for any highlights, like quick, brief remarks. Thank you.
I'll make some very brief remarks, no highlights for me. Thank you very much for the questions. I think they were very, they allowed for some clarification. And then also looking forward to bringing forward an amendment that allows for everybody's voice to be heard. Greatly appreciate the time, and thank you, Chair and Committee.
Thank you, Chair. All right, thank you. Thank you, Assemblymember. Thank you myself. At this time, I'll go ahead and close the hearing on AB 214. And we'll go ahead and open the hearing on AB 310. And Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno, whenever you're ready.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the Assembly Committee on Government Affairs. I am Assemblywoman Danielle Monroe Moreno, and I represent Assembly District 1 in Clark County. I lovingly say it's the best district in the entire state. That's why it's number 1. Joining me here at the table, I have technical assistants here. And to my left, I have Ms. Brooke Page, who's the director of the Southwest Geography Corporation for Supportive Housing, and Ms. Christine Hess, who is the executive director for Nevada Housing Coalition. Just to give you a little background about why we're here for AB 310. In 2013, former Governor Brian Sandoval issued an executive order, which was 2030-20, to establish the Nevada Interagency Council on Homelessness to coordinate and focus the state's efforts to effectively address the challenges of homelessness in our state. The council provided the opportunity for Nevada to engage in an integrated approach regarding homelessness and promote interagency cooperation. Jump forward a few years. Many of you on this committee did not have the privilege of serving alongside my friend, Assemblyman Tyrone Thompson. He passed away unexpectedly during our 2019 legislative session. But one of the issues that he was most passionate about was homelessness. One of the bills he carried in 2019 was to enact AB 174, and we were able to codify that shortly after his passing. And it was codified for the council was created by that executive order and thereby creating the Nevada Interagency Advisory Council on Homelessness to Housing. And I'd like to thank the Vice Chair, Assemblywoman Duran, for serving on the council for the past 2 interim sessions. Assembly Bill 310 builds on the work of many individuals who have come before me and you, and it provides much-needed funding for the interaction issues of homelessness. With that, I will briefly summarize the bill that you have before you and discuss a proposed amendment. We got the bill and we felt that there were some language changes to clarify it, so the amendment should be up on Nellis if you don't have it in front of you. The bill summary. It requires the Housing Division of the Department of Business and Industry, subject to the availability of funds appropriated for such purposes, to develop and implement a supportive housing grant program. The program must include a process for applying for the grant, procuring and developing supportive housing, to fund the operation of supportive housing partnership. The division must, 1, consult with the Nevada Interagency Advisory Council on Homelessness to Housing before approving any application for a grant to procure and develop supportive housing. And 2, adopt regulations to carry out the grant program, which must include the criteria for eligibility to receive money and procedures for the submission and review of applications. And 3, submit an annual report containing certain information about the grant program to the governor and the director of the Legislative Council Bureau. The bill creates the Nevada Supportive Housing Development Fund in the state treasury to be used to carry out the grant program and make an appropriation for the state general fund to the fund in the amount of $32.2 million. The proposed amendment that you have before you made some needed changes to the language. If you look at the amendment in subsection 1 of section 2, the amendment expands the allowable use of the grant to include training and building the capacity of supportive housing partnerships and assessing the progress of supportive housing in Nevada. 2, in subsection 4 of section 2, the amendment adds the chair of the Nevada Interagency Advisory Council on Homelessness to Housing as a recipient of the annual report required. And 3, in subsection 6 of section 2, the definition of supportive housing is revised to mean this: subsidized housing that prioritizes people who can benefit from comprehensive support services to retain tenancy and utilize admission practices designed to lower barriers to entry that would be typical for other subsidized or unsubsidized rental housing, especially related to rental history, criminal history, and source of income. Supportive housing is paired with on-site and off-site voluntary and tenant-centered tenancy support services designed to A, support a person living with a disabling behavioral and physical health conditions, who experience homelessness or unnecessary institutionalism, or was at imminent risk of homelessness prior to moving into housing to retain their housing. And B, provides tenancy support to assist with achieving successful tenancy, improving health status, and connects tenants with community-based services, healthcare, treatment, and/or employment services. Supportive housing is subject to all the rights and responsibilities as defined in NRS 118A, which is a chapter of NRS related to landlord and tenant dwellings. With your permission, Madam Chair, I will now turn the presentation over to my co-presenters.
Good morning, Chair Torres and Vice Chair Duran, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Brooke Page, as I was introduced by Assemblywoman Danielle Moreno. Thank you so much for the time and for hearing AB 310 today. It is absolutely a privilege for us to be here, and as Assemblywoman mentioned, I sit here on the backs of giants and the folks that have really paved the way to be able to kind of have these conversations. We definitely want to thank the Housing Coalition. I'm going to turn it over to my dear friend and colleague, Christine Hess, to kind of give us a start to our presentation today.
Great. And I guess, Mindy, are you comfortable, or I can come over there, actually? Yeah, I'll come over there to run the slides. Thanks.
We're going to play musical chairs.
Good morning, Chair Torres, Vice Chair Duran, and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Christine Hess, and I am the Executive Director for the Nevada Housing Coalition. Thank you, Brooke, for the introduction, and thank you again, Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno. This is truly an exciting day. When I woke up this morning, I was like, wow, this is awesome. So I really appreciate your time. If you're not familiar with the Nevada Housing Coalition, we are a statewide nonprofit working to promote affordable housing for all Nevadans. We advance our work through education, advocacy, and collaboration. AB 310 is an example of the culmination of all three of our priorities. The slide I have here on the screen depicts the various types of housing that make up the housing spectrum. We have a severe shortage of affordable housing across our state, but today's focus is on supportive housing. Affordable housing is defined as housing in which the occupants pay no more than 30% of their income on their housing. Supportive housing is purpose-built, affordable rental housing that is not only the roof over someone's head, but it also provides the wraparound services to keep that person or family stably housed. In Nevada, we have very little supportive housing, and we do not have the infrastructure in place to expand this housing and effectively capture the federal funds we are leaving on the table. For example, in Reno, where are individuals going after the CARES campus or our place? In Las Vegas, where do you go after the courtyard or from shelters? Just yesterday, this information was presented by RCG Economics at the Coalition's Lunch and Learn to understand the housing landscape across our state. You can see here in the second column current average rents for our state and our two large metro areas. The third column shows the household income that's necessary to afford these rents. And in the fourth column, you'll see the actual median renter household income. In our state, the average rent is $1,458 per month. In order to afford this, a household must earn $62,500 per year, but the median renter household income in Nevada is just $49,200. This validates what you all are hearing in your communities from many renters. Nevada's housing is unaffordable. It also helps explain why we are seeing our homelessness rates increase. A study by Zillow showed that communities in which households pay more than 32% of their income on rent have higher rates of homelessness. Affordable or subsidized housing is one solution to help solve for this housing instability and for those Nevadans at high risk of homelessness or experiencing homelessness. Supportive housing can stop the cycling through crisis response services. Supportive housing is not exclusively for Nevadans with incomes below 30% of area median income, but they are typically deeply subsidized. This chart here reflects our current subsidized inventory. I didn't have time to update it for 2023. We're at 37,000 now, but we're pretty darn close here. For today's conversation, I think that this will make the point. These are our affordable properties with income restrictions and rents that are below market. For today, I would like you to see what we are building. Nearly half of our subsidized inventory is serving households at 60% of area median income or higher. Only 3% of our current inventory serves our most vulnerable populations, making less than 30% of area median income. Again, not exclusively, but the housing that serves our extremely low-income Nevadans is typically where you will find our supportive housing supply. So why isn't this housing getting built? We have amazing for-profit and nonprofit affordable housing developers that want to build this housing, but for funding the services. The Nevada Housing Division manages the funds and financial tools to support the bricks and sticks, but in order to be financially feasible, supportive housing also requires funds for services. A supportive housing development fund will allow the division to be the one-stop shop for our existing developers that are already doing this good work. While we automatically think of our metro areas, this slide shows that our challenges are statewide, right? I just want to point real quick to the rural communities, right? In our rural communities, 7 out of 10 extremely low-income households are paying more than 30% of their income on their housing. It is unaffordable. Before we move on to discuss supportive housing in detail, I want to share this information. Although yes, we know we need more housing supply overall, and yes, Nevadans across income levels and across our state are feeling the pinch of the high costs, the greatest burden is on our extremely low-income Nevadans. On the far right on this chart, on this slide here, you'll see that 86% of Nevadans making less than about $25,000 per year, $25,000, are paying more than half of their income on rent. In the middle, you'll see that if they are out looking for a place to live, there are only 17 homes that are affordable for every 100 families looking. This is, by the way, the worst in the country, once again, and by quite a margin this year. So who is suffering from this severe shortage? And that's the pie chart on the left, right? Because sometimes there's some misperceptions about who represents our extremely low-income households. It's seniors, it's veterans, it's those with disabling conditions, caregivers, and yes, our workers that are in our communities working and helping sustain our economies. And if you remember from our subsidized housing inventory, this is the least built affordable housing in our state. This is the category in which supportive housing falls, and there are many of the Nevadans here who supportive housing could serve. So I'm going to turn it over to Brooke. And Brooke, if you want to call for slides, I'll change them for you.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. Good morning again, Brooke Page for the record. Thank you so much, Christine, for paving that data. It's definitely important for us to understand the context and why we are advocating for supportive housing. A lot of this work has been done in the Interagency Council on Homelessness to Housing that Assemblywoman Monroe referenced. There's a definition that's already been adopted that is now a part of your amendment. And so why supportive housing? Because it's cost effective. Because we know that when we provide a person with a home, we know that it provides them with the stability to help them not be cycling in our crisis response system. Data that we've been tracking and modeling, we know that 9 days in an emergency room equals 3 months in a jail cell, equals the same amount as 1 year in supportive housing. So the cost of doing nothing and not creating the housing stock that we need is costing us more. So having that effective housing strategy is really important. Next slide. The benefits of supportive housing are endless in terms of the person that has a home and the keys to live and to be able to provide for their families. But some components that we want to make sure that you all are aware of is the importance of supportive housing and the fact that we're talking about folks that need this level of intervention because they probably haven't been able to get access to a home, possibly for challenges or barriers in their life. And so this is an opportunity to be all-inclusive for our veterans that need access to housing, our seniors that might be cost burdened because of limited or fixed incomes. It's our young people that are transitioning into adulthood. There's multiple populations that can benefit from this housing intervention. We also are focusing on, there's 30 years of research and a lot of communities that have been implementing supportive housing. And so we want to be able to create that framework and infrastructure in Nevada. We want to be able to provide a home for folks that can afford it. When we know that there's people working, making 30% of our area median income, they need a place to live. And so having a home that's affordable, having a lease that protects tenants so that way they can navigate landlord-tenant law to ensure that they have those protections. And then also ensuring that we've got the services. And so we're going to spend some time on that today because we want to kind of recognize the importance of this because we don't have this service structure in place financially. And that's the gap. I sit on a lot of advisory committees, and when I ask developers, why are we not building supportive housing? A lot of them say because it doesn't pencil and we don't have the services to do this work. And so this is an opportunity for us to put and invest resources into the services that are needed. Next slide. There is differentiation that it's important for us to distinguish because we've got really great work, a lot of important affordable housing stock in our communities. And right now there's a whole field of folks that are providing resident services, which is really important. Shout out to those service workers that are doing important work. And so we'd like to differentiate between resident services and supportive housing because, you know, when we expect a person to manage a building that might have 200 people, there's not going to be a lot of individualized support in that type of setting. But folks are doing it. They're providing information and referrals and brokering relationships in the community. And so we want to recognize that. And with supportive housing, it provides us with the opportunity to provide more targeted support to our tenants, low caseload sizes, maybe 1 to 15, 20 at the max. But these folks need that level of intensity. And so this provides us with that support. On the next slide, we kind of show what the impacts and the benefits of this model. And so this is a mixed staffing with supportive housing. We have tenant supports. So a case manager that's helping somebody get out of maybe a shelter setting or out of the courtyard and helping them transition into a permanent place to stay is part of the staffing pattern. We need that pre-tenancy supports, low caseload sizes, and we need diverse people. We need people with culturally responsive connections that can meet people where they are and build those rapport and build that relationship. And so having a diverse workforce to do this work is important. Next slide. And so right now in our system, we use a model a lot called scattered site housing, where folks may have tenancy support services or a housing voucher, and we rely on our private market landlords who are really carrying this work and helping us so much with our inventory to house people. And with supportive housing and a model that we don't do a lot of, but it's effective across the country, is single-site supportive housing. But many of that strategy requires on-site case management. Right now, we're brokering those relationships with other case managers, or we're hoping that people show up. Having dedicated case managers will make sure that our property managers are supported and our tenants are supported in housing. Next slide. This is just an example. I won't go into all the details, but this is a pathway of how somebody can navigate into supportive housing. I know that there's questions around, how do people access this? And how do we ensure that the people that actually need this level of support are actually getting access to housing? So this provides an opportunity to sort of see, from pre-tenancy, where somebody might be coming from a shelter setting, or they might be coming from the streets, or maybe they're inappropriately coming or being discharged from an institutional setting. This is an opportunity for us to meet them where they are and help them navigate, find a place to stay, and be stabilized in housing with those wraparound supports. Next slide. And so we know that this works. This is an evidence-based intervention. And these are outcomes that we know that we can achieve if we provide the quality level of services and the affordable place for somebody to live. We know that tenants stay housed for the long term. We know that people increase their health. Housing is healthcare. And so we know that they improve their health, they increase their income, and they create community, because they are in a place where they can stabilize and address goals and maybe get a career or do gardening, whatever that looks like. But we are providing somebody with stability. Next slide. So as I wrap up, I just want you all to recognize that we aren't leveraging our federal resources because we don't have the infrastructure to do this level of work. And so by ensuring that we have the infrastructure in place, we could be going after so many different funding sources that could fund and sustain supportive housing for the long haul. But because we don't have the infrastructure, we're not tracking it, we're not measuring it, we're not prioritizing it, we aren't building it, so we aren't necessarily able, we can't leverage funding. And so it's important that we create this infrastructure so that way we can make sure that we're doing this and tracking it. So thank you so much to Assemblywoman Danielle Moreno. She already went over the bill, so I'm not going to necessarily go into the details of this, but we'll open it up and entertain any questions.
Thank you, member. Thank you for your presentation, Assemblywoman and Ms. Page and Ms. Hess. I appreciate it, and thank you for taking the time to meet with me ahead of time. And I do understand, and I want committee members to understand the quick nature of this process, because I believe that this bill was actually introduced last week, so they might not have had the opportunity to meet with every single one of us, but I definitely know that they're open to continuing those conversations. I want to start by just asking a couple questions to help clarify the presentation, because I know that we met for quite a while yesterday, just so I could make sure that you never know, even if it's a 2-page bill, it still took me a while to kind of wrap my head around what the goal of this bill is. So I kind of want us to just kind of start, if we could just find, like, I want to make sure that we have a good understanding of supportive housing. So from our conversation yesterday, my understanding is there's different types of affordable housing available, right? There's obviously federal programs that are available. Probably committee members are familiar with something like Section 8, or there's like projects available in our communities, right? So you have these neighborhood residential areas, and then something like Section 8 where you have funds and you can go out and essentially your rent would be paid for by some group, by the federal government, right? And so you're getting a check from HUD, and that's used to pay for those services. But you're not receiving any other services, right? You're not receiving like access to healthcare. You're not paired with a caseworker that's connecting to you to these other services. Now, this would be kind of similar in where it's housed, in that you can go to Nevada Partners right now in Southern Nevada, and they will help. You complete the application for Section 8. This is kind of similar, is my understanding. You can go to perhaps an organization like Nevada Partners, but they're going to provide more complete case management. Once you're in one of these programs, you would have access to something similar to like a case worker within your residence. So I imagine like an apartment complex right now, instead of me going to just like that site manager every time I got to pay the rent, I can also go there when I need help accessing healthcare services, when I need help accessing food, when I need a job re-entry, and they can connect me to those tools and services. Am I understanding that right, or can you expand on that?
Chairwoman, thank you so much. Brooke Page for the record. You're absolutely right. So this is an opportunity for us to provide services on site, in the home, and to be able to support tenants where they are and meet them where they are. We do and our providers that are doing this work already do wonderful things in the community, but are navigating in a scatter site model where there's so many people all across the community. It's hard to provide that intensive services, on a smaller caseload size. And so this provides us with the folks that need it, that service on site.
Thank you. And there was another question on whether or not this is building the houses, or this is allowing for you to procure, so the developers will develop the houses, and then this would allow for these funds to be used to procure that housing, is how I read it in the legislation. Or would they be used to help with the building of that housing, and then also, of course, maintaining it so that there's those services that continue to be available to community members?
Thank you, Chair Torres and Committee Christine Hess for the record. So these funds would fund the services that come alongside the buildings, the actual units. So these would not fund the actual units. However, in order to build the units that serve a population that is not being served right now, they must have these funds. So these funds would attach directly to those units. And it can be also developer driven, right? We have developers right now in the queue who want to do this housing, have even started down the road of this housing, but don't have the services, especially for the amount of time that we're committing to keep these rents restricted, right? Like, these are assets for our communities.
Thank you. And then thank you for allowing me to kind of just dig in. I just want to make sure that we have it very clear for the record, as well as for committee members, to understand what this conversation is about. And I think we might actually want to strengthen that language in Section 2 just a little bit, because as it reads right now, in line 6, it states that the grant program would be used for the purpose of awarding grants for the development of supportive housing. And we might want to just development does almost suggest development building. So we might want to look into that a little bit and strengthen some of that language in Section 2, sub 1. But thank you so much. I appreciate those clarifications. Assemblyman DeLong.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for those clarifying questions. Appreciate the presentation. I'm just wondering, what's the size of population that you're expecting the supportive housing to serve?
Thank you. Brooke Page for the record. So we have a national supportive housing needs assessment at the organization that I represent, CSH, and we estimate that there's roughly 7,000 people that need this level of supportive housing in Nevada. Part of what we are asking in the conceptual amendment is that we track and actually do a needs assessment to kind of understand what the magnitude of this need is, so we can come back and be able to have a robust report on what the need is, who's getting served, and how this is being operational.
Follow up, please. Of those, let's say it's 7,000, what's the breakdown between the urban centers versus the underserved communities in the rural part of the state?
Thank you, Brooke Page, for the record. That's exactly what we want to understand. And we don't have a statewide supportive housing needs assessment right now to be able to speak to those specific rural implications to urban. But we know that the need is great, and folks right now are really stuck in emergency crisis response because we don't have the housing infrastructure. So we want to be able to provide the time to assess what that truly looks like.
Thank you. Members, additional questions? Assemblyman Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you to my colleague and to those of you who came. Thank you for bringing this bill. This is something that's one of those, what are we doing about housing? And as a state, it's a little bit more challenging because we're so far away. I just want to make sure, and Chair, thank you for the clarifying questions. It helped a lot. There's one other area that you may have covered, but I think I may have missed it. So I know there's a request going to a different committee for funds on this, but from a policy standpoint. So do you envision who applies for the grant dollars? The funds are secured and so on. Say this gets through, it passes, the governor signs and so on. So now there's a grant set. Who applies for those funds? And then I'll have a follow-up after I get that, if I may, Chair.
So a lot of that will be developed in rural. However, the applicants are going to be the developers, right? So one of the things that, for me, I will say, so supportive housing, in case you didn't know from the presentation, is not my area of expertise. That's why we have Brooke Page here, and Christine Hess for the record. But I've come so far to understand how important it is, right, in our communities, and it's missing. But it would be the developers, right? And so part of what brought me on board would be one applicant. It could also be service providers coming in, right? There's also capacity building grants. A lot of why this isn't happening is because we need to build capacity. I was just in a meeting yesterday with our Northern Nevada tribal communities, and we were talking about the supportive services work that's happening there, right? They're rural as well, so they have ultra challenges. But they could also use some support for capacity, and we talked about Assembly Bill 310. So it could be developers, it could be service providers, but those interested in, again, providing services directly linked to housing. And with this fund landing and housed in the Nevada Housing Division, that gives me confidence that we're funding services that are attached directly to housing that is going to help someone be stably housed.
So if I may, Chair.
Yes.
Thank you. So the way this could look theoretically is there's a developer, and apparently there are many that would like to do more of this, but don't have the funds to provide the supporting. So there's a developer. They're going to build a complex, and they would like to have it to be supportive housing. So they would apply for a grant that would give them the money to house someone there. They don't run it, but it's someone that comes from the housing people. With all due respect, the housing people, but they will get the funds to be able to make that a part of what they build, and then to house someone there, and then pay for that person to continue to stay there.
Yes, thank you so much, Brooke Page, for the record. Really important clarifications. So the developer will have a budget that they would want to work with us if they have a dedicated service provider that they're already partnering with, and we know we've got some exceptional providers already in our communities, but working with those experts to develop the budget of how much it would cost to provide this level of service at their developments, and that's what they would be essentially applying for the grant for. And so they would have a budget, they would request that particular resource to the Nevada Housing Division, and that's where also the partnership with the Interagency Council on Homelessness to Housing would come in, because that body has expertise on it from people with lived experience, from the Health and Human Services, and can really help ensure that we're meeting the needs of tenants.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for those clarifications. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Assemblyman De Silva.
Thank you, Chair. I had a quick question. So how would the outreach sort of look like, especially during the pre-tenancy sort of a time frame there? What kind of outreach would you be doing, and exactly how would it benefit then these individuals? Thank you.
Yeah, great question. Brooke Page for the record. So currently right now, a lot of our outreach efforts are done in our homeless response system. We have a system already set up that's really sophisticated. There's coordinated entry with a wait list of significant amount of people that are waiting to be housed. And so essentially this would provide the housing infrastructure so that system can move. So people can move off of those wait lists and get into a permanent place to live. But because this isn't federal funding, but we can kind of create pathways and rule really define, is coordinated entry one path, or is there other paths that we need to create? That's something that I think is important for the design of who's applying for this grant to help inform and tell the housing division how they're going to find the tenants, how they're going to make sure that the right people that need this level of intervention are getting access. That's going to be on the onus of that program and that application to kind of make that business case. Yeah.
Thank you, Suleiman Wynn.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem, for bringing this very, very complex issue up. It's kind of, I'm sitting here and I'm like, I thought I learned something, and then wait, hold on, that's another thing that I'm learning. That is just really, really shows that we still have a lot of education around this topic and how we can support our community this way. In terms of understanding how we provide these services that is so much needed, I'm wondering if, in terms of the case management that you listed in the bill, does that include family services? Because I know that when we got into the supportive services, there are two sometimes separate but equally important social services and family services. They do different things. So in terms of family services that you were thinking of in this particular project, how does that really help the families, especially, folks with situation that may be affected by, custody cases or CPS issues? I know that we, in my day job, we got into housing services and we quickly back out of it because we just got really overwhelmed quickly. So I know family services are a critical component in this environment that we don't get often talked about is those family units. So if you could go into that, that would be awesome.
Thank you for the question. Brooke Page for the record. So this is a really important piece of this bill, too, because there are already service providers that are working with families and that understand the nuances and the needs of our families and our communities. We would hope that the developers that are developing these housing developments are working with those experts to design a grant application to meet the needs of a family development. Right. So there's a family community, and that community wants to focus on people in the child welfare system. We hope then that service provider would link up with that developer and they would develop an application to apply for this grant program. So this being inclusive to all populations that need this level of intervention. So if there's a veteran project, we would hope that the veteran experts are working with the developer to develop a veteran project application to apply for this funding, and so on and so forth. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the funds need to define what that looks like, but I think the community needs to tell us what they need so it can be funded.
Madam Chair, can I just add to that? Danielle Monroe Moreno for the record. What you said is spot on. This is a complicated issue that we don't have one solution for, but it's going to take a multitude of solutions. And AB 310 is just one part of the solution to the problems that we see that's going on in our community.
Thank you. And to clarify, too, the division would be responsible for creating the eligibility requirements. So even though this particular bill doesn't say, these are the expectations of the housing projects we're going to have, the division is going to lay that out after the passage of this bill. They would create those regulations and policies.
Correct.
Thank you. Assemblywoman Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Assemblywoman Danielle Monroe Moreno, for bringing this presentation. And thank you for my constituent for being ready to support our community. And I guess my question actually has to do with, you kind of explained that if it was a veterans issue, the developer would have housing for the veterans. Would that include being in, Assembly District 17, which has a number of veterans in our community? I was wondering if that would be something that developers would be looking at to house those veterans that may need housing for and wraparound services.
Thank you for the question. Brooke Page for the record. I think that's an excellent example, right? A developer taking the time to assess where is the need and working with our service providers that specialize in veteran services and developing a program in a district that needs that level of service, right? So that would be the onus on our community to kind of define where and what that partnership looks like, and then bringing that package and that request to apply. So I think that's an important example, and one that we would want to advocate for that type of program in a district where that has a military base really close and all the things. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Assemblywoman Gonzalez.
Thank you so much. Good morning, and thank you so much for the presentation. I just had a quick question, and I was curious. So we began the presentation talking about affordable housing, who qualifies, and then we got into wraparound services for people that need maybe a little bit more help. So I just wanted to clarify who or what the population this would serve, and then also what are any guardrails in place to make sure that this is happening, because it's a grant, right? And so who's overseeing that, right? Who's making sure that these developers aren't hiking up prices and things like that? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Assemblywoman Christine Hess, for the record. So I think one of the most important factors is this fund would house at the Nevada Housing Division, right? They are currently managing our assets, our inventory of 37,000 units, and they have a compliance team in place that monitors the income restrictions already. They have those relationships already. So as I consider the public funds and the guardrails you spoke about, I think that is one of the things that the legislature could feel confident on. I know I do, as I consider these funds. And I think you had the first part of your question was, I apologize, I went right to the second part.
No, you're fine. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. With these complex bills, we don't always aren't in the weeds and know, right? So I appreciate that. And then the first question was the population, right? Because when we say affordable housing, right, I right now do not live in an affordable housing unit. My rent is more than 50% of what I'm making, but I don't feel that I would qualify in the parameters that were set forth. So I just wanted some clarity on when we're talking about that, what is the specific population that we are seeking to assist? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Brooke Page for the record. So the population we are defining in the conceptual amendment, there's a definition for supportive housing. And in there we talk about people that have experienced homelessness or who are at risk of experiencing homelessness or who are experiencing inappropriate institutionalization because there's not this type of housing set up in our community. So the details of what that means would be, kind of at the discretion of the program that's defining their program and the population that they're serving. They would, hopefully fall within the definition of supportive housing and the criteria, but they would essentially determine what that eligibility looks like.
Thank you so much for that clarification. And I don't think I had a chance to look at the amendment, so thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And I did have one additional question. I think just the more that we talk about it, the more we're looking at the parameters and the impact. What if the housing is developed and they receive this grant, and then once the grant funding is done, what ends up happening to these housing? I guess my concern would be that we get this done this session. Then if these funds are not available, is there any safeguards in place? Because what happens to those tenants after these services have been provided? And if we can no longer provide the services is my question, because we give the money to the developers to provide these services.
Danielle Monroe Moreno, for the record. Can I clarify what I think you said? So there's an appropriated amount that's within the bill. You're saying once that money runs out, what would happen?
Yeah, so if, I don't know, I'm a developer, I get $1 million to provide these services in my complex. After 2 years, if this grant is not available for me to reapply, what now happens to the tenants that are there? Maybe I apply and I just don't get the grants. Now what happens to those tenants? Like what does that look like in the long run? Or what commitment do the developers have to make to providing those services after they've received those funds? And maybe this is a question that we don't have an answer to right now, but just a consideration.
It's an excellent question. And what this bill does is it provides the infrastructure to start this work and get it in a place where we can demonstrate the effectiveness of what we're not doing. But something that the Assemblywoman also put into this bill is the importance of leveraging other resources. So not only is it going to hopefully be seated by the legislature, but also there's philanthropic dollars and there's other funding sources and contributors that can be contributing to this fund as well. And we could be leveraging other federal resources that currently right now we're not leveraging because we don't have the infrastructure for this. So there's a lot of opportunity for us to grow and scale, but we need data and we need to be able to demonstrate the effectiveness of this in order to make that argument.
Thank you. Members, I don't see any additional questions. We will now invite anyone wishing to testify in support of AB 310. And just a reminder to anyone wishing to testify in support, please make your remarks, but then if somebody ahead of you has already said those, please feel free to just say ditto or what they said, and make sure you state your name and spell your name for the record. Thank you. Please begin when you're ready.
Assemblywoman Chair Torres, Christine Hess for the record. I have a letter of support that we've received sign-ons for. For the sake of time, I don't know if you'd like me to read the letter. We have, at this point, 64 signatures collected in just the last day, so very exciting. What would be your preference?
I think if we could have the letter submitted to Ms. Bishop, our committee manager, and then she'll make sure that that letter goes out and is passed on to all of our members.
Great. May I read the names of those who signed on for the record?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair and Committee. So again, this is a sign-on letter of support for Assembly Bill 310. We just put this out yesterday morning around 9 o'clock. So we have 64 sign-ons. Landon Hester, MD. Chico Clark, Oikos Development Corporation. Ariel Martinez, APM Biz Consulting. BJ Wright, Coordinated Living of Southern Nevada. Iris Gel Peppard, One Truckee River. Jackie Ray, Advocates to End Domestic Violence, Carson City, Nevada. Jorge Castillan, Aid of AIDS of Nevada. Charity Cage. Michelle Johnston, U.S. Vets, Las Vegas. Brandon Gaeta, Northern Nevada Hopes. Howard Wellesley Bills, Fallon Community Alliance. Monica Dupay, Nevada Youth Empowerment Project, Truckee Meadows Housing Solutions. Danica Martinez, Southern Nevada Lived X Consultant. Martin Castro, Home Team City of North Las Vegas. Danny Sparks, HopeLink of Southern Nevada. Danielle Herrera Markwald, Accessible Space, Inc. Francis Alling. Kristen Aviles. Jonathan Norman, Nevada Coalition of Legal Service Providers. Donald Miller, HopeLink of Southern Nevada. Eric Novak, Praxis Consulting Group, LLC. Deidre Edmund Drew Black, Silk Developments, LLC. Breha Thomas, Nevada Homeless Alliance. Pamela Horsford. Hillary Lopez, PhD, City of Reno Housing Authority. Crystal Griffin, Southern Nevada Health Consortium member and advocate. Blake Levitt, Blake Realty Ventures, LLC. Katrina Grisby Thedford, Nevada Homeless Alliance. Julia Alquia-Grosso. Hassan Chaudhry, Foresight Housing Partners, Inc. Pastor Eve Williams, Advent United Methodist Church. Maurice Page, Page Strategic Solutions, LLC. Anthony Casey, Keith Tamura, Brazen Architecture. Virginia DeVito, Advent United Methodist Church. Trevor Macaluso, Chief Executive Officer, Eddie House. Alejandra Fazekas, Joanna Grant, Eileen Bidwell. Lori Murphy, Ovation Development. Benjamin Castro, the Reno Initiative for Shelter and Equality. Jessica Medina, NAMI, Southern Nevada. Louis Hickson, Chicanos por la Casa, Nevada. Cynthia Watson-Catha, Impact Exchange. Nevada Hand, Dr. M. Christopher Brown II, Nevada Partners. Jerry Kepler, Accessible Space, Inc. Christine Saunders, Progressive Leadership Alliance of Nevada. Timothy Doyle, Booker Reed. Brent Lovett, Lion Modular Sustainable Workforce Housing. Angela Phillips, Habitat for Humanity, Las Vegas. Serena Evans, Policy Director, Nevada Coalition to End Domestic and Sexual Violence. Adam Bentley Clausen, Rise Village Qualified Opportunity Zone Fund. Brooke Page, CSH. Martin Montgomery, Executive Director of Washoe Housing Authority. Ken Berry, Accessible Space, Inc. Sheila Cohen, Vets 365. Stacy Lockhart, CEO, HopeLink of Southern Nevada. Aaron West, NVO Construction. Ashley Cooper, Opportunity Village. Falala Riley, Help of Southern Nevada. Yvette Myers, The Empowerment Center. And Christine Hess. Thank you.
Chair Torres, Assembly members, Dan Musgrove with Strategies 360. We at Strategies 360 are very, very proud to represent a number of nonprofits that will be absolutely positively impacted by this legislation, whether it's Safe Nest, whose mission is to help those that are impacted by domestic and sexual violence, or the Foundation for an Independent Tomorrow, FIT, who is a job-creating, job-training nonprofit that lifts people out of poverty, or WestCare, who right now is working to raise money to build supportive housing for the women and children who are going through their substance abuse program in Las Vegas. But there may be a couple of you on this committee who realize that I also do a lot of work in mental health as the immediate past chair of the Clark County Children's Mental Health Consortium, which is a legislative created committee. I work in mental health. And if I could leave you with one thought today and think about all the other things that may happen to a person in their life, but one of the important tenets of trauma-informed care is looking at a person from the aspect of not what's wrong with you, but what's happened to you. And imagine the impact of being unhoused to a child or an adult and the trauma that caused. And so we have to realize that being without a safe place to live is very traumatic for both adults and children. And what this bill talks about today are those supportive services that really go along with helping those people move forward. And so obviously myself and all of my clients support this legislation and thank the sponsor for bringing it. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Torres and members of the committee. For the record, Amy Sjogren, that's S-H-O-G-R-E-N, with Black and Wadhams representing the Vegas Chamber this morning. We'd like to thank Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno for bringing forth this very important piece of legislation. And we are in full support of this bill and the positive impact that it will have. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Kennedy McKinney, here on behalf of Nevada Women's Lobby and the Human Services Network. We want to thank Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno for her work bringing this bill forward. Stable housing is a critical foundational element to help support individuals in finding and holding steady employment, addressing struggles with addiction, and protect individuals with all forms of violence. We know that housing is a key legislative priority, and daily we are faced with the lack of affordable and attainable housing throughout Nevada. This bill is an important step to help provide a resource to homeless populations and ultimately support them in getting off the street and staying off the street. We urge you to support AB 310, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the committee, for the record, Kelly Crompton, representing the City of Las Vegas. The City of Las Vegas supports the development and implementation of a supportive housing grant program as it helps people to stay housed, get healthy, and build the skills they need to live independently. Supportive housing allows constituents that we serve to obtain much-needed services while they are being safely housed. We are in support of the provision of supportive services, case management, and supportive housing assistance to low-income persons through CDBG funding, ESG funding, the Home Investment Partnership Program, and housing opportunities for persons with AIDS with a HOPWA funding. Thank you to the bill sponsor for bringing this forward, and we look forward to working with the community to bring this bill up.
Chair, members of the committee, Jonathan Norman, N-O-R-M-A-N. I'm just going to say ditto. This is a real solution, and it's appreciated and I thank the sponsor.
Thank you for your quick testimony.
Chair Paul Catha, it's spelled C-A-T-H-A, representing the Culinary Workers Union Local 226. We support Assembly Bill 310. I learned from Ms. Hess's testimony that apparently my mother also supports the bill. And I'd like to echo everyone's comments. Ditto. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Catha, and to your mother.
Hello, committee. Ashley Garza Kennedy, representing Clark County. I'll be brief and just say that we are in support of the bill. Our board and our leadership have prioritized housing at all levels over the years, and we have successfully partnered with the state in these efforts. We hope that this fund will give us additional opportunities to work towards the goal of moving our communities towards stable housing solutions. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair and Committee. For the record, my name is Joelle Gutman-Dodson with the Washoe County Health District, today in strong support. Permanent supportive housing is a piece of our community improvement plan for the Washoe County plan for how we address issues in our community. On a personal note, in a past life, I was a case manager for individuals unhoused, and looking them in the eye and telling them that they're 500 on a list of, on the waiting list of when they can get housing is truly awful. And this evidence-based supportive housing that helps people keep their medication, keep them employed, keep them in touch with who they need to be in touch with is so important. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairwoman Torres and members of the committee. My name is Eva Black with Solid Consulting, representing Silver Summit Health Plan. As a Medicaid insurer, every day we see firsthand the urgent need for more housing for those on extremely low incomes. With the passage of AB 310, Nevada can begin to leverage the game-changing opportunities presented by supportive housing availability, evaluate and track those being served, and take advantage of the new federal funding that is currently being left on the table. Investing in supportive housing and this Supportive Housing Development Fund is a win for Nevadans in need and a fiscal win for our public dollars, as time and again, communities show that the cost of homelessness is higher than the cost of stable housing. Thank you to Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno for bringing this important legislation, and we ask you to join us in supporting this bill. Thank you.
Hello, Elise Monroy Marsala here today on behalf of NAMI. First, we would like to thank the bill sponsor for bringing this forward. NAMI is really excited and hopeful about the appropriation proposal, as well as the possibilities that this could bring for supportive housing and the mental health community. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Torres, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Cadence Matievich, representing Washoe County. Washoe County is here in support of this bill. We thank Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno for bringing it forward. I won't reiterate all of the great reasons that you've already heard this morning for the bill, but I do want to emphasize what you heard from Ms. Page about how much smarter these dollars work. We want our dollars to work smarter and not harder. The return on investment for these dollars is so much higher than in other alternatives for where these people are receiving treatment currently. We urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Nicole Rourke, representing the City of Henderson. I'll just echo the comments of the colleague before me and say that we support AB 310 and thank the sponsor as well. We think this is really important legislation and urge your support. Thank you.
Hello, I am Roxanne DiCarlo. I'm the Executive Director for the Empowerment Center, which is a nonprofit organization located in Reno, Nevada. We provide transitional housing and support services to women who suffer from a substance use disorder. Several years ago, we recognized that individuals that were completing our program were struggling to find housing that fit their new lifestyle. There's nothing more heartbreaking than watching a woman work super hard to change her life and then end up back in a weekly motel or in an unhealthy household where drug use and abuse continue. It's only a matter of time before their foundation erodes and they end up right back in the cycle of addiction and back at the Empowerment Center, right where it all began. I'm excited to say that in November of last year, the Empowerment Center opened up the first in Nevada affordable permanent supportive housing for individuals in early recovery from a substance use disorder. Marva Way is a complex, is a 42-unit affordable housing complex that provides next steps to those in early recovery, allowing individuals to dictate the length of time and support they need. Within 2 weeks of opening the application process, there was 160 applications received. There are currently 200 people on that waiting list. In just a few short months, we'll break ground on Phase 2, adding an additional 45 units, much-needed units to this complex. The Empowerment Center is incredibly grateful to the funding provided for the actual building. Funding came.
I apologize if you could please begin to wrap up your testimony. Thank you. But any written remarks can always be sent to our committee manager as well.
Okay. So we're really grateful for the funding that was received to build the building. We built it using funding that came from the county, from the city, and from the state, and Phase 2 is funded through the Homies Nevada funds. So we're really grateful. The problem that's being talked about here today is the support systems that are then made available to the actual building once it's built. And so we don't, for my building, for our project, we don't need a ton of support funding for it. I would say about $100,000 a year would cover the support systems. We need one employee to kind of manage those support systems.
Thank you so much for your testimony. If you could please make sure all your written remarks are submitted. We do have several other individuals that are here to testify and support, and I know our caucus, we all have to get to the floor soon. So thank you so much for coming. We appreciate it, and we look forward to reading your testimony.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Marlene Lockhart, representing SEIU 1107, and for all of the very positive, wonderful things that have been said, we too support this important legislation. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Leah Case, Leacase, here today on behalf of Children's Advocacy Alliance. I will take a note out of my mentor, Marlene Lockhart's book, and say ditto.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Ariel Edwards, representing Nevada Hand. We are so grateful for this piece of legislation, so we are in full support of AB 310. We'd like to thank Brooke Page from CSH and the Nevada Housing Coalition and Assemblywoman Danielle Moreno for all of their hard work on this piece of legislation. We urge its passage. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, John Sandy, SANDE, with our Gentum partners here today on behalf of the Nevada State Apartment Association. I want to thank the bill sponsor. This is a great piece of legislation. As my grandmother always told me, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Very true for this bill. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning, Madam Chair. For the record, Nick Vanderpool with Flynn Judici Government Affairs, representing Nevada Rural Housing Authority. The Executive Director, Bill Brewer, was in the audience but had to leave for another meeting. We're here in support. Thank the sponsor. Appreciate it.
Good morning. Barry Cole, B-A-R-R-Y-C-O-L-E, psychiatrist. The first name mentioned of the 62 was one of my residents. I'm very proud of him for being an intern and already politically active. This housing issue is so broad that it actually changes length of stay and how much medication somebody can have when they leave a hospital. You don't realize that. But if there's an unstable housing situation, I can't discharge somebody from a state hospital. Also, I can't give them a 30-day supply of medicine if I don't know where they're going to live. So this would address a number of issues and allow us to provide more comprehensive care, reduce length of stay, and it plays off of the 9 days in the ER. The 3 months in jail is the cost of a year's worth of housing. This is a better way to do it. Thank you. And my grandmother said the same thing. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Amen.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and go to Las Vegas.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Keith Lynham, I am the chairman of the Nevada Realtors Legislative Committee, LYNAM. We're in complete support. Want to make sure that we thank the sponsor for bringing this well-thought-out solution to supportive housing. As you all know, we are. It is our top legislative priority to have affordable, attainable housing. So, thank you.
Good morning, Chair Torres, Vice Chair Duran. Mackenzie Warren Kay with McDonald Carano, appearing in support this morning on behalf of both the Southern Nevada Home Builders Association and Ovation Development. SNHBA supports AB 310. It provides a key ingredient of something that's been missing in the affordable housing discussion. It's our hope that we bring more developers into the supportive housing front with this bill. And for Ovation, AB 310 hits particularly close to home. Ovation has a supportive housing project currently at the zoning phase, and AB 310 will hopefully pave the way for more developers to start building affordable housing that includes those wraparound supportive services. We urge your support. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Torres, and to the committee. Thank you for having me this morning. For the record, my name is Jaron Gray. That's Jarron, last name Gray. I represent the Urban Chamber of Commerce as the board chair. We are in support of AB 310. I thank you to Assemblywoman Danielle Monroe-Moreno, Ms. Page, and Ms. Hess for bringing this important legislation forward. We recognize how important it is to have affordable housing and solve that housing equation for our small business members that are not able to pay a livable wage in some cases. And solving that equation is very important for not only our members, but for our community as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else in Las Vegas wishing to testify in support of AB 310? Seeing none, BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in support of AB 310?
Callers, if you would like to testify in support of AB 310, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Good morning, Chair Torres and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Emily Paulson, EMILY PAULSEN, and I join you today as a proud member of the board for the Nevada Housing Coalition and as a social worker with more than 15 years of service to our homeless community in Nevada. 8 of those years have been spent implementing, managing, and directly providing services in supportive housing. What I can tell you from this experience is that supportive housing works. Supportive housing transforms lives and ends the cycle of homelessness for our most vulnerable populations. But you don't just have to take my word for it. This is an evidence-based intervention proven to not only provide a pathway out of homelessness, but to keep people stably housed, to improve their health outcomes, and to save public resources on avoidable downstream costs of homelessness. Thank you, Assemblywoman Danielle Monroe-Moreno, for bringing forth this important bill, and to Ms. Page and Ms. Hess for your leadership. Thank you. I urge your support of this bill.
Thank you, BPS. Next caller.
Caller with the last 3 digits 153, please press star 6 to unmute your microphone.
Hi, my name is Katrina Grigsby Bedford, GRIGSBY-THEDFORD. I am the Executive Director of Nevada Homeless Alliance here in Las Vegas, and I see, and I'm sure most people in the room see, the increase in homelessness. I also happen to see this up close and personal as we have events targeting individuals who are unsheltered and homeless. I'm a licensed social worker, a certified drug and alcohol counselor, and on top of that, I'm a person with lived experience of homelessness, substance use, and justice involvement. AB 310 is needed in our community. Permanent supportive housing increases housing stability, and it also improves health. It's very, very cost effective. When you think of the public costs associated with use of shelters, hospitals, behavioral health agencies, as well as jails. Our most vulnerable homeless neighbors have high needs, and we must realize that rapid housing is not a one-size-fits-all for our homeless neighbors, and we are finding that many are in need of more person-centered, longer-term services. Our community is behind the ball in comparison to other communities, and AB 310 is one step in the right direction.
Thank you. BPS, next caller.
Chair, there are no more callers choosing to testify in support at this time.
Thank you. Is there anyone wishing to testify in opposition to AB 310? Seeing none in Carson City and none in Las Vegas. BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in opposition to AB 310?
Callers, if you would like to testify in opposition to AB 310, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify in opposition at this time.
Thank you. Is there anyone wishing to testify neutral to AB 310? Seeing none in Carson City and none in Las Vegas. BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify neutral to AB 310?
Callers, if you would like to testify in neutral to AB 310, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify neutral at this time.
Thank you. Any closing remarks from the bill sponsor?
Danielle Monroe Moreno, for the record. Thank you, Chair Torres and Committee, for listening to the presentation and hearing the vast amount of support for Assembly Bill 310. There's not much more that I can say that you've already heard. There is a need in our state, and this is just one solution to so many of the needs that we have. So thank you, and I urge your support.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. At this time, we'll go ahead and close the hearing on AB 310. We'll go ahead and move on to public comment. Is there anyone wishing to testify in public comment? I see none here in Carson City and none in Las Vegas. Is there anyone wishing to testify? BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in public comment?
Callers, if you would like to provide public comment, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller that just joined the line, if you would like to provide public comment, please press star 9 now to provide public comment and take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to provide public comment at this time.
Members, is there any comments before we adjourn our meeting? Assemblywoman MacArthur? No? Okay. Assemblywoman Thomas, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And for the record, I just wanted to again say that this was one of the reasons why I wanted to be an assemblywoman for the state of Nevada, for my community, to hear good bills come across that we can support. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Members, any additional remarks? I wanted to acknowledge, because we failed to do so yesterday, and I will take full responsibility of that, but yesterday was actually a holiday in this committee, and we failed to note that because our committee assistant, Ms. Cheryl Williams, celebrated her 21st birthday, yet again, 25th. Okay, she's at least 25. And we wanted to make sure that the record reflected how much we appreciate all that Ms. Williams does. I have had the pleasure of knowing Ms. Williams since I was a freshman legislator in 2019. She always has a smile on her face. She wants to talk to everybody. She loves diet soda, so if you have any in your office and you see her walking by, just throw her one and she will take it. She likes to go out dancing. She loves her horses and she loves her grandkids. But most of all, she loves spending time here in the Assembly Government Affairs Committee. It's her favorite committee, she states. And let the record reflect, Ms. Cheryl Williams' favorite committee is this Assembly Committee on Government Affairs. Go ahead, Vice Chair Duran.
Yes, she is amazing. I met her in 2019 as well. She has always welcomed everybody with open arms, willing to help anybody out, very caring and loving. And I just want to say there's not too many people like you. God bless. Hope you enjoyed your birthday.
Thank you. So today we will go ahead and adjourn the committee in honor of our good friend, Ms. Cheryl Williams.